we're going to open it up with none other than the transfer portal. In seasons past, this has been the arch nemesis of Clemson fans, if you will, with it being just thrown in our face repeatedly about, Clemson and the rest of the service academies are the only ones that don't use the transfer portal. Well, that quickly ended after the completion of the 2024 season. Dabo has now pulled in 3 transfer portal players that are going to be impact players for the Tigers. Obviously, we've already broken down the addition of Tristan Smith at wide receiver. We've talked about Will Helt and how he's going to help the defensive end group and probably start opposite TJ Parker. And today, a former, recruit of the Clemson Tigers, they recruited this guy pretty hard. They came down between Alabama, Georgia, and Clemson. Ultimately, Jeremiah Alexander chose to go to Alabama. That's where he spent the past 3 seasons. Had a bit of a limited role for the Crimson Tide. Obviously, most of his snaps are coming on special teams. Limited snaps at linebacker, but he was a highly recruited 5-star guy, 6'2", 249 pounds. He's got 2 years of eligibility left, so he's not a one-and-done guy. Adds much-needed depth to that linebacker room. What are your thoughts about the addition of Jeremiah Alexander and what it means for the Clemson Tigers going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that Jeremiah Alexander recruitment pretty well. This was a recruitment that Clemson, desperately wanted to win when he was coming out of Thompson High School. And Clemson was in the driver's seat for a lot of his recruitment. And, in fact, he was silently committed to the staff up until roughly a week before he made his announcement. That was one that Clemson it really hurt to lose. So I view this pickup as kind of a righting of wrongs, so to speak. I think that's one of the things that I had hoped Clemson would be able to take advantage of when they did start to really delve into the portal is, because they are such a great relationship building school, program, staff, that you would be able, like one of the things that Clemson would be able to do well is circle back on guys potentially that they missed on coming out of high school. And this is the first time that that's come to fruition. And so it was really, really cool to see, when he first announced that he was entering the transfer portal. Peter Woods was very active on social media.
Yeah, he wasted no time letting both Jeremiah and Clemson coaching staff know what he wanted to happen. So.
Yeah, it was very evident. It was very clear that they probably had conversations. Obviously, being high school teammates. So there were the seeds had already been planted, so to speak. And it was just a matter of he took his first visit to Auburn. Came out of that uncommitted, and Clemson was next on the list. And he had his visit yesterday, and from all accounts, even without a defensive coordinator, it couldn't have gone any better. And he decided the question was, well, is he going to take his visits to Ole Miss and Oklahoma? But he ultimately decided to pull the trigger. He said, "This is where I want to go," and announced his commitment today. So, as far as the player that you're getting a really great athlete. That, like you said, did not play a ton of snaps at Alabama, but the few snaps he did play, it was mainly at linebacker. He was recruited out of high school as a defensive end, undersized defensive end. But he was a guy that needed a fresh start, and Clemson was a unique opportunity for him, a place that he was very fond of, obviously coming out of high school. And a place that needs some depth at linebacker. I mean, we've talked about this room for a little bit now, and your lack of depth, really showed itself, especially in the back half of the season. Especially, and then you had already had Kobe McLeod go out,
Right.
And obviously you weren't able to get much and get that next step out of D. Creighton or Jamal Anderson, and none of the true freshmen were able to really step up there. So. You were really, other than Sammy Brown, of course. So you were really in a bind there, and you didn't really have many guys that were playable. So it was Barrett Carter, Wade Woodaz playing a million snaps a game, and Sammy Brown coming in as that third guy, because you did not have the depth. So Jeremiah Alexander he brings a much needed body to that room, and I think he has some upside, because that 5-star pedigree didn't come out of nowhere like that. That was like that. His rating was not for no reason, and he certainly has the athletic profile and traits that I think this linebacker room desperately needed. So I think it's a fantastic pickup, and one of the things that we said, okay, Dabo, you went and got, Will Helt, a guy that's going to be an instant impact type of player for you, and then you went and got Christian Smith, who adds a body, but you needed another but one of the things that we were waiting to see was, okay, well, is Clemson going to go and get a guy that's going to plug a hole as far as depth is concerned, and maybe not a guy that's super highly productive at his previous stop, but
Mhm.
has the upside to be able to give you some depth at the position that you're very thin at. And he went and did it, and it's a massive win. It's the fact that you were able to keep him from even taking his visits to Ole Miss, who's a very big spender in the transfer portal, and Oklahoma, who obviously
Yeah.
has relationships with that staff as well. It's a massive win. That can't overstate it, I guess. And it kind of shows that Clemson is willing to do what it takes when they have a guy that they want. They have taken advantage of it much better than they were able to in previous cycles.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think Clemson fans should be excited about a guy like Jeremiah Alexander. Obviously, production standpoint, people are going to look at it and be like, oh, whatever. Um, but there was a reason that Clemson was extremely high on this guy coming out of high school. They recruited him very hard. Unfortunately, they lost out to Nick Saban in Alabama. But here he is arriving a couple years later onto campus, and Clemson's got him, on campus, and I think he's going to be a crucial depth piece. You talk about that linebacker room and how much depth was an issue this season. Had Sammy Brown not stepped up in the way that he did in that linebacker room, we would have been in a whole lot more trouble on the defensive side of the ball than we already were in. And it was not a great defense, obviously. Uh, that's stated in the fact that the defensive coordinator got let go at the end of the season, right? But you do have Wade Woodaz returning, right? You do have Sammy Brown returning. Those are going to be your top two guys in the room without a doubt. We'll see what Kobe McLeod looks like coming back off of a torn ACL. We'll see if Jamal Anderson can take that next step. D. Creighton, we'll see if some of those freshmen can step up. But I think Jeremiah Alexander is going to add some much needed depth to that linebacker room, and I think his upside is extremely high. So we'll see what we can do with him in the Clemson system. Jordan, what does it kind of say about Clemson, Dabo Swinney, the coaching staff, that they were able to land a linebacker, one of the higher rated linebackers in the portal, right? Former 5-star, without even a linebacker coach currently on staff or a DC currently hired. What do you think that says about Clemson, Dabo Swinney, and their ability to really go out and compete in this transfer portal world for players that they need to plug holes, as you said?
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows that relationships still matter. I think that's one of the things that, like I said, Clemson has done really, really well and has always done well under Dabo Swinney. And don't let people tell you that, oh, it's all about the money. Like, no, you still, relationships still have their place in recruiting, and even in the portal, where it's a little bit more expedited as far as the process is concerned. Um, and so I think it was big. I mean, like you said, you didn't have a linebackers coach or defensive coordinator, but you had the previous relationships, obviously, from his recruitment. I was Chris Rumpf and Nick Eason were with him on his visit. as well as Peter Woods, and I think that ultimately won you the sentimental kind of pull,
Yeah.
and he went and pulled the trigger. So I mean, it's a massive win for the staff, massive win for this roster and for the especially the floor of this team going into 2025. I mean, not even talking about the potential ceiling. So I think it's a really big get for the the defensive side of the ball, and it's at a position where I think you needed to add a body and a guy that maybe is a little bit older, and has at least played some football, and especially at a program like Alabama.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And multiple years of eligibility left. I think that's key
yeah,
in getting a depth piece for that defensive side of the ball. Shout out to Peter Woods. I'm sure he was instrumental in Jeremiah Alexander going ahead and shutting it down before even visiting Ole Miss or Oklahoma, as you mentioned before.